Alright, hello and welcome. My name is Ethan Holan, and this is my activity 3 for CS-310H. Let me just get a few things set up real quick and we can get started. Alright, this is basically a walkthrough of chapter 1 through 5 in Unreal Engine. So we'll start out with launching Unreal Engine. Chapter 1 is exploring the blueprint editor. So, if Unreal wants to launch, thank you very much. Sorry, my computer is going to be a little slow again with OBS running as well as Unreal Editor, but hopefully we can make this work. Alright, so as you can see, I've already created the project for Activity 3. In the book it says to create a third-person game to sort of test all of this blueprint stuff on. So I did. We'll open that up. It also wants you to install Unreal Engine and everything, but that's obviously already done. It explains blueprints as a kind of visual scripting, so instead of programming, you're moving around these little blocks and attaching them to each other with pins and such. Alright, so first off, we are going to open the level blueprint editor, which is under blueprints. And if you go in here, click here and say open level blueprint, it'll open up the editor. And this is a great example of a blank event graph, so there's nothing on here. If you wanted, you could search and add actions for the blueprint. And over here are some details about how the event graph is working, and then up here you can use this little button to compile, make sure everything's running smoothly. And this whole bar up here helps with commands, and if you hit this button it'll actually play the level straight from that. So now we have functioning movement around. We can move our character forward. We can even jump if we want to. Yep. Go back this way, that way. Perfect. So each as you can see, the level itself has that blueprint, but the character, the third-person character, also has a blueprint, and this is that blueprint. So we'll open that up and take a little bit of a closer look at it. And this is not a blank event graph. This has all of the makings of a normal event graph. So it has variables. You can add components here. So this is the skeletal mesh for the character itself, and that's under this capsule component, which gives the general area around where it is. There's also camera boom, which gives us that third person effect, separates the camera from the player a little bit, and then the camera itself, which we can move and adjust if we'd like to. We've also got the details on each of the things over here. You can change the rotation. If you wanted to set that to 90 degrees, apply it, the camera would be facing up, which isn't useful, but we can just quickly undo that. probably back to where it was. Now for each of these, we have the viewport, which we can actually see the character in. We have the construction script, and we have the event graph. And the event graph is really what we're interested in. That's where the programming sort of deal comes in. And each of these comment sections have a little graph and a little chart inside them that'll give you some action. So for example, this one's gamepad input, and you have these, which are variables, the base lookup rate and the base turn rate, which are declared over here. So if we wanted to make a new variable, we could go under here and hit variable and say we wanted base turning or something. And we could go in and set that boolean to either true or false. But for example, this is when you would need to use the compiler and compile this real quick, and then you would have this. You could set that to true or false at start, or you could come in here and find the is turning, and you could either get it or set it. So let's get is turning, and it'll look like a variable like here, and then we could feed it in to some place where a value would be taken or a boolean would be taken. Or if we have, let's get rid of that. Come on. There we go. So for example, here we have base turn rate, which is set to 45, and it is a float. We can check here, variable type of float. So when we have it in here, we're getting the base turn rate, putting it in, multiplying it times a times b times the get world delta seconds, and we're outputting that to the value of add controller yaw input, which is going to give us the turning. It's going to be the value of how much the player will turn whenever you move the mouse side to side. And then up and down, it'll look up and down, and it'll put that base look up rate, which is probably 45 as well, 45, into the add controller pitch input after it gets multiplied times get world delta seconds. So all of these little components are super important for the third person character. Now we're on to, we're kind of lost, but chapter 3, which talks about, let's get back to that main scene, how the character is an instance of the class. So this third person character, this is the blueprint of it, and when you instantiate it into the scene like this, this character you see here is an instance of the third person character class. So if you wanted, you could make multiple versions of this. You could put another one over here. Well, he's halfway on the floor, but get the idea. And another one, over here. Now this would probably be a bad idea because I'm sure the camera will lose it. But as you can see, these cameras are attached to the character, and you can take a look at them. Whoa. Change the sensitivity on that. You can see them from behind and check where they're at. So in a multiplayer game where you'd have multiple, different characters walking around with multiple different cameras, I'm sure it wouldn't be set up this way, but they would all be instances of the third person character class. And maybe each instance would have different costume or clothing or something. Let's Command Z a few times here, remove our two instances, and now we've just got the one instance left, and if we play it, it should act properly, and we can walk forward. And every instance of this class would have inherit the same values for variables. So when you're turning, it turns 45 degrees each way, just as we just saw in the class. And it'll, have the same up-down values, side-to-side value. They'll all easily be controlled like this. You can still jump. Perfect. Alright, so let's move on to chapter 4, which is understanding blueprint communication. So each of these blueprints, obviously, if you have, multiple characters, you would need one to influence the other or communicate with the other. So, for example, if this third-person character gave another third-person character an object or some tokens or money or something in the game, you would want that to transfer from one instance of that character to another instance of that character, so those two classes could communicate with each other. Or for example, if you had another class of third-person character blue, where when you had an instance of the blue character and the white character, the blue character could hand the white character some coins, and the classes would communicate with each other and pass those coins from one character to the other. And chapter 5 is object interaction with blueprints, which, so for example, if you had these stairs in the game, you can move these around or something, but if you wanted your character to interact with these stairs, or say it was a cube like this one over here, and if this character had a gun and he shot this cube, you would want that cube to either be destroyed or turn red or do something, and you can have your blueprint interact with this cube's blueprint and turn it red. Alright, I think that's about it. Thank you very much.